Hey, what's going on YouTube? Welcome to Post Cologne. Today we're taking a look at Lattafa's Hayaati Silver. All right, so Hayaati Silver is from the house of Lattafa. It is an EDP concentration, and you can pick this bad boy up for $20 on places like Fragrance Buy. I'm gonna have a link down in the description if you decide you wanna check this one out. Now this is listed as a couple different names. On Fragrance Buy it's listed as Hayaati Black, whereas on the Lattafa website it's listed as Hayaati Silver. I'm gonna go with the naming of Hayaati Silver just because that's what Lattafa calls it, but if you see it listed as Hayaati Black, I'm almost certain it's going to be talking about the Hayaati Silver. So that's just to clear that up, because two different names that I've come across, running with the silver, even though it is a black bottle. And it is a very nice black bottle. It's pretty straightforward. It's got a kind of a taller presentation. It's got these kind of rounded corners on the bottle, which gives it kind of like nice, smooth, kind of semi-elegant sort of look. It's, you know, it's not on the classy side, but it is pretty like modern, straightforward, to the point. The black on this is actually, this is not a sticker, so it's not like I can peel this off or anything like that. This is actually in the glass, which is a nice touch, because when you get bottles with stickers on it and you feel like you can peel it off, it just has that cheap sort of feel. So this doesn't have that cheap sort of feel. And you also have the shimmering Lattafa logo along with the name of the juice right up front. So nice little touch, very kind of clean design, heavy bottle. Cap on this is a bit of a cheap plastic. It's fairly lightweight, but it's not like the cheapest plastic. Like, I don't think I could crush this in my hand unless I'm way more powerful than I imagine, but it's an okay cap, a little on the cheap side. So atomizer on this, pretty average, nothing too special about it. And the fragrance itself does open up a little bit synthetic, I will say that. It does have a bit of like a hairspray vibe going on, and that's because of this green apple note that's at the top with this bergamot that kind of mixes with the alcohol that's at the top. And so to be quite honest, it does open up a little synthetic, a little harsh. That green apple has a very sweet, tart sharpness to it with that bergamot that kind of accentuates that green apple. And with that alcohol, it kind of just, it really is coming across kind of aggressive in terms of how sharp it is. But that does dissipate after a minute or so. So once you get through that, what you're left with is that green apple and that bergamot. And it is a very, like I said, sweet, tart, sharp style opening. And you do get the apple more than anything out of both of those notes. Once this sort of opens up a little bit, that mid starts coming through, that apple does get toned down a bit, the sharpness starts to come out of it, and the sweetness and the tartness still remain, but you get some cinnamon and some woods that mix in there, and that really calms things down quite a bit. The cinnamon and the woods don't stand out as prominent notes. You're not getting like a definitive cinnamon or a definitive woodsy style note. You're just getting that kind of calming effect, and it's starting to round out a little bit with like that touch of kind of warm spice that starts to come through. In the base, you have a vanilla and a musk. And again, the vanilla and the musk add to that toning down of that apple. You're getting that apple from the opening all the way to the dry down, but that mid and that base of the vanilla and musk will round it out, take some of that edge off that apple, add a little another layer of sweetness with the vanilla, and it just turns into a really nice, sweet, fun, youthful, playful, almost sort of flirty style fragrance. Very, very nice. It's quite enjoyable. It is pretty basic. It is pretty, you know, linear in that sense. Like I said, from the opening to the dry down, you're pretty much getting the same experience with just kind of a little transition in terms of how that apple comes across, but not a lot changes in this fragrance besides that. So it is pretty simple, like I said, and you know, there's other fragrances in the Lattafa line that kind of resemble this, but have a little bit more complexity. One of those being Lattafa's Najdia. Now I find these two to be fairly similar, but they're not identical. I do find Najdia has a little bit more complexity to it. It does transition through their notes a little bit more interesting, I would say. It does have a little bit more greenness to it. It has like this lemongrass that's mixed in there, a little bit more aromatics, like some lavender, some other florals that are mixed into the mid of this. And it does have kind of more of a rich wood base with a tobacco note that's in there. I don't pick up on the tobacco note so much, but it does have a little bit more complexity, a little bit more maturity to it, even though this is still a very fun, youthful, playful fragrance. I would say that this is a little bit more interesting than Hayaati, but they are in the same neighborhood. I wouldn't say they're identical, but they are definitely in the same neighborhood. Now the performance on the Hayaati was about average. I didn't get, you know, beast mode, longevity, or projection out of this. I got about 6 hours off my skin, and I'd say that first hour to hour and a half of projection was, you know, beyond an arm's length, not too much further than that, and then it did settle back in fairly quickly. It's that really sharp apple that really projected at the beginning, but once that kind of calmed down, some of that mid and that base started to come through. By the dry down, this was like sitting fairly close to my skin, and like I said, about 6 hours in, like I really had to get my nose up to my hand to smell this fragrance on me, so it did become a skin scent at that point and pretty much kind of disappeared. So the performance on this was about average. It was not a beast mode style fragrance. It is a little bit more on the kind of fresh, sweet summer style fragrance, so I didn't expect this to be too crazy, but like I said, about average. It is what it is. Not too disappointed with the performance overall for a $20 fragrance. Now, in terms of occasions, I think this is definitely more of a summer style fragrance. You could wear this in the spring as well. It's got that kind of that sweet, clean feel to it in terms of that summer sort of freshy vibe. It's not in that freshy neighborhood necessarily. It is on the sweeter side. In the summer, this would do fairly well. I think once it get really hot, the sweetness of that apple might be a little bit on the cloying side. So again, spring into the kind of cooler-ish summer days, I think this would do very well. In terms of occasion, this is a very casual fragrance. This wouldn't dress up all that well. And I do think it's more for that kind of youthful crowd. Like I said, like the younger guys could really appreciate this, but for kind of the more mature, older gentlemen, I don't think this will be your jam. I think something like Najdia might be a little bit more mature for you, even though that again is a fun, playful fragrance. I think this is definitely for the younger crowd. Now overall, I would say Hayaati Silver is a good fragrance. The opening can be a little bit harsh, but that does kind of fade away a little bit, and then it opens up and it becomes a very nice, simple, to the point, fun, playful fragrance. But like I said, I think this is kind of catered more to the youthful crowd, and it's not very complex. It's not overly interesting. It is a little bit on the generic side, to be quite honest. And I think something like Lattafa's Najdia, for me personally, is a little bit more interesting, a little bit more complex, and something I would reach for before I reach for Hayaati Silver. Both are in that $20 price point, and they give you a very similar vibe, but like I said, the Najdia has those added notes, has a little bit more depth to it, and I just find it to be a little bit more interesting. This one, a little bit on the generic side. So it's a good fragrance. I wouldn't say it's a great fragrance. This is not necessarily a must-have in your collection. If you're like me and you're like trying to collect all the Pokemon when it comes to Lattafas and experience everything, I don't regret having this in my collection. I will reach for this, you know, on occasion, but it's not something I'm too excited about at this moment. It's not a banger. It's not kind of my top Lattafas. It's average, maybe kind of will sit in the back of my shelf for a little bit, and I'll pull this out on occasion when I'm feeling like I want to wear Hayaati Silver. But overall, it's a good fragrance. It's not a great fragrance. Performance is average, and it is what it is, and that's my honest opinion. And I want to hear from you guys. Have you guys tried Lattafa's Hayaati Silver? Let me know down in the comments. What did you think? How did your experience go with that? Let me know. Love hearing from you guys. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.